Hey everyone, Charles here. And first of all, thank you for stopping by my podcast. If this show inspires you, makes you think, or gives you that courage to jump into action, please help by donating to this show. Click the link in the description and donate. Your donation helps us with production and finding great guests moving forward. Thank you and enjoy. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Jump Podcast. If this is your first time here, welcome to Jump. Jump is a show about getting to that next level, helping you jump into the next level. I bring you interesting guests, just like you and me, that's going to help you jump into greatness. If you're ready to jump, here we go.
You know you should be doing something different, right? Hey, I'm talking to you. Do you believe that you have the gift for greatness or have a special talent, but don't have the courage to take that next step? Always wondering how others made it look so easy? Well, welcome to Jump, the show that will bring you special guests just like you and me. How did they get the courage to jump into greatness? Doing what they love and living the good life. So, get ready to jump with your host, Charles Matthews Jr.
Yes, we are back live, and thank you for joining us. If this is your first time, we thank you for joining us. Now, today's guest is an interesting one. I've been looking at his websites and see what he's doing, but I'm going to let him tell his story. Please welcome to the Jump Show podcast. A big round of applause. Donnie, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Charles. Doing well, man. Happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for having me.
And it's not a problem, man. People don't know what we go through to make these shows happen.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Thank you for your graciousness with some of our internet challenges over here. So first world problems, right?
Let's get down to the nitty gritty, because I was looking at your profile and your assistant reached out, and I'm like, okay, I like when people take charge. I like when they say, listen, I got something to say. I can help people, and that's what it's all about. Jump is about helping people get to that next level. So Let's go back, though. Let's go back to the young you. Give us some background on you, who you are, where are you from?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Born in California, raised in Michigan, grew up in a really small town. Population was about 2,500. We had 2 stoplights, and when we got the second stoplight, that was a big deal. I think when we got McDonald's, it was probably an even bigger deal. But there was a small Christian university, based in the town that I grew up in, which gave, I think a little bit more of an international feel, right? So, it started off in grade school. I was in, class with, kids from, 30 plus countries. And all that. So I think it gave me a really great global view, of everything. And that's kind of where I grew up and where I'm from.
So how'd you get into this thing called entrepreneurship? What was the bug? Like when you were smaller, what did you want to become?
Yeah. So funny enough, when I was a teenager, I got this idea about acquisition entrepreneurship. So I read this book. It was a biography, and it was called "Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun?" It's a biography on this gentleman by the name of Reginald Lewis, who has since passed away. But the gist of it was his story was he grew up in Baltimore. Fast forward to the 80s, I believe he'd made the largest international acquisition at that time of Beatrice Foods. And I want to say it was for just under $1 billion.
Wow.
And so for me, that I read it, I was 13, maybe 14 years old. And I said, holy crap, you can actually buy businesses, right?
Yeah.
Nobody I knew, at that point was, really an entrepreneur or, anything else. Entrepreneur wasn't a hot, kind of buzzword like it is today. And everybody wasn't an entrepreneur, right? You see it in people's bios, but that was really when I got the dream about, acquisition entrepreneurship and the fact that I could be, an entrepreneur, but actually acquire a business as opposed to, necessarily starting something from scratch.
All right, so let's backtrack a little bit. If people don't understand what that is, because we say an entrepreneur buying business, let's break that down for everybody.
Oh, man. Yeah. So absolutely, man. So I think that it's actually one of the best ways to become an entrepreneur, right? So I'm a little biased in that way, but acquisition entrepreneurship is looking to acquire or purchase an existing business. Now, ideally, it's an existing cash flowing business, right? And if you look at it, the Exit Institute actually, has predicted, and I think this was 2018 actually stats, that this decade, so between 2020 and 2030, there would be 4.5 million businesses in the States for sale that would switch hands. And this is all in the lower middle market, right? So we're talking about family or founder-owned businesses. They've been around for, anywhere from probably 20 to 75 years, right? And the valuation on those 4.5 million businesses was about $1.5 trillion. And so, when you think about it, these are all businesses that are probably cash flowing, let's say $500,000 to like $2.5 million a year. These founders or families are paying themselves salaries, and probably just looking to, sell the business to retire, but frankly, as a way to succession plan or just continue the legacy of the brand and, company that their family or themselves had started.
So that means you don't have to start with the new logo. You don't have to start from scratch and branding and this and that.
You already have clients. You already have staff. Once again, the business, it may have plateaued, right? So it may not be, proactively growing, but it's definitely a business that, is running, that has existing client base, and most likely cash flow. Okay.
So then my question is, how do you start? Because that means this business, like when you're your own entrepreneur, you can start from scratch. You mean like throw a couple $100 there, a couple $100 here, but you got to go into the big chunk, don't you?
Well, I would, let's debunk that myth today, on the Jump podcast, right? So there's basically 3 ways that you can go about acquiring a business. And from some of the stuff that you talk about on previous episodes, we know that there's probably hundreds of ways, right? But I'm going to share 3 with our listeners today.
Oh, see, so hold on now. Let me get my pen ready, because when my guests give me nuggets, I got to make sure the pen is working.
Oh man, okay. Let's do it. Let's get practical. So there are three ways you can consider acquiring a business. One is through SBA financing, right? And so there are programs and literally billions of dollars that go to small businesses and for growth. And those funds can also go towards purchasing a home. And so, in whatever, state you live in, and I'm imagining, country, internationally, there's got to be some programs that exist in that way. But, specifically in the United States, there is a way to kind of grow those businesses and billions of dollars that are literally allotted for growth, and they can be used to acquire a business. Now, the example I'm going to, let me just say one thing real quick for all of our listeners. Number one, there is no shortage of capital, period. Number two, there is no shortage of opportunity / business, period. The missing link is the talent, which in this case would be you and I, right? Okay. There are not the people who have the capital and have access to the opportunities do not know the person like you, Charles, or me, who wants to run that business, period. That is the biggest gap at this point, is talent. It's not the opportunity, and it's not the capital. And so, as you mentioned, when you think about traditional entrepreneurship, most people were trying to think of like, what's a brand new idea that I can think of? What's something that hasn't been done before? Um, as opposed to thinking through, well, what's something that as I drive around, as an example, I'll give you a couple examples of some small businesses that are amazing to me. So, if you go into a parking lot, right, or a warehouse, kind of or parking garage, the stanchions that are kind of like they're either made of plastic or, sometimes cement.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I have a buddy of mine who bought a business that only installs those.
Okay.
But they install those at like warehouses for Walmart or Amazon, or once again, parking lots or parking garages, right? Somebody literally has a business that's been around for like 30 to 50 years, and that's all they do. Right. So let's unlock people's minds, because, I was able to acquire an assessment company, right? We do pre-hire assessments. So, for those of us who have applied to, different jobs before, blue and gray collar roles, et cetera, if you've ever taken like a logical reasoning test or a math test, from an aptitude perspective, right?
Yes.
Or a work behaviors, assessment, there's a possibility that, my company actually, sent those tests to the organization that was looking to hire you. Right. And that's another type of business. Had another buddy of mine who acquired a transportation company, 250 specialty vehicles. They're, 15 passenger vans with like 9-foot ceilings that people come in and, would like rent and, drive up to, Maine and New Hampshire and just kind of go camping and go on adventures. Right. That business had two partners that had run it for, 30 some years. Right. So I give all of those examples just so folks can really open up their mind to understand that there's probably services that you all have. If you're in your local grocery store, like how many founder and family owned businesses do you see that are, Sally Smith's pecan pie company, right? That's been around since 1901, right? That family has been running that business for that amount of time. And so, how many people in your family, potentially make an amazing peach cobbler or apple pie or, something else. And what do you talk about at the holidays, right? Like,
okay, hold on. So how do you find that one for you? Like when people go into entrepreneurship, it's because something they have the special skill, they like doing it or something. How do you go out and find the one that you're not going to get bored of later on? You're not going to say, oh, why did I get this? Oh, I hate peach cobbler. Why did I buy a peach cobbler?
Yeah, I would say if you hate peach cobbler, then like you probably should not buy a pie company for sure. So my advice to folks is this. Number one is think through things that you really enjoy that you would basically do for free. And then also think through whatever you're doing now, right? Because I'd argue that, if even if you hate peach cobbler, right? Well, let's say if peach cobbler is okay, let's not say you hate it. That's a pretty extreme. But you don't love what you do from a 9-to-5 perspective, but your biggest concern to jumping into entrepreneurship is that you have a job and you receive a paycheck.
Right.
Then acquisition entrepreneurship is a way for you to become your own boss, to run an existing cash flowing business where you can pay yourself a salary.
Right.
And ideally you're doing it, with something that you can take transferable skills to run. And when you talk about running a small business, right, we're not talking about, a Fortune 50, organization. We're talking about a company that maybe has 10 or less employees. And once again, may just be doing, a couple $1 million in revenue and maybe $500,000 or $250,000 in free cash flow at the end of the year. So these are not things that managing the finances of an organization of that size, I would say are arguably less complicated than probably managing your monthly budget as a home, from that perspective.
All right. So this show is Jump. and we get into the nitty gritty.
Let's do it.
How many times have you jumped and failed?
Oh man, numerous times, my friend, numerous times. So, I was actually head of HR and on the executive team for a hospital, for some time in Florida, and I made the decision to, leave that organization to pursue a venture development opportunity, with a new company and all of that. Ironically, I met my wife at that point, and she was in residency. I used my savings to kind of join that, and it ended up not working out. Went through all of my savings, during that time, and just ended up learning a bunch of lessons, at that point about, one, resilience, understanding that, frankly, there's really nothing that you can't bounce back from, because that was, within the past decade, right? And so now, fast forward to 2020, I learned about this business and we're able to, actually acquire it, in the midst of a black swan event, catalyzed by this global pandemic. So, and all of that happened within, a 5 or 6 year period.
Okay, so then
I don't know if you want me to get more detailed than that, but
yeah, man, let's dive into it, because here's the thing: there's people out there that are loving what you're saying. There's people out there that wanted to do what you're saying for about 5 years.
Yeah,
but every time they're like, okay, I'll do it next year.
Yep.
Let me do some more research.
Yep.
Let me do, like, there's a whole bunch of ass.
Yep.
Okay, and I tell this story all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in radio over 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
It took me over a year to put on a podcast because it's the doubts. It's like, is anybody going to listen? I'm leaving the radio air to come do this kind of thing. Is anybody going to be following me? And you never know if you're going to do it unless you do what? Jump into action.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So get into it. What was the fears? What were the, oh my gosh, like you said, you found the woman of your life, and you're going to tell her, by the way.
Well, we talked about it, transparently, right? So we were dating at the time and thought that marriage might be, in our future. And so I was just like, should I keep working, to ultimately kind of make sure that financially we were in a position where, if we wanted to get married and, do all these things. And she was just like, no, like if it's something you believe in and something that you love and you're not loving what you're doing currently, then you should jump. Right. I don't know if that was the exact word she used at that point, but she was like, you should definitely do it. And for me, right, I fresh out of grad school, right, like I started working with a startup based in Atlanta, Georgia, right, like I was commuting from New Jersey down to Atlanta. So some of the advice I'd give is this, right, and not to be cliche, but I mean, you have to do it scared, right? I mean, I don't believe that anyone is fearless. Right. And I have plenty of fears. Right. Growing up without a lot of money and, stuff like that. Some of the advice I was given was like, don't have any debt and, save your money. Right. I wasn't told, I wasn't necessarily taught how to create money. Right. To build strategic partnerships that are going to lead to generational wealth. I definitely wasn't, having conversations around equity and ownership, early on. But, as I continue to grow, one of the biggest things I've learned, man, is you don't have to be fearless. You just have to be courageous. Right. And it only takes, frankly, a second to make that decision. And so as folks continue to think about, what is that next move, here's a thing that I'm going to encourage folks on big time, right? I have a phrase, only dream big.
Okay.
And I believe that a great practical question that our listeners can ask themselves today, right? If you say you have a dream and you've been waiting, right, and you've been waiting on it, etc., I want you to ask this question to yourself today. Can you accomplish your dream by yourself? If your answer to that question is yes, then I propose to you that your dream is not big enough.
Yes. Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Because no person is an island.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that you want to achieve in life, you're going to be able to do it with and through other people. Right? So I'm blessed and privileged to be on your platform and your podcast, the Jump Podcast, today, because you made a decision to be courageous and to start your pod.
Right.
Right. Without that, I wouldn't be able to now share my story with, thousands and millions of people, right? As people are resharing it and sharing it with other people. And it may not even be a direct listener today. It may be them sharing it with a friend that they didn't even know has been thinking about jumping to an opportunity, which then ironically, is then putting that person's family and the other people that they're then employing and their client partners and all of that. I mean, the ripple effect on these types of decisions, just a small decision to be courageous,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Not to be fearless, just a small decision to be courageous can literally impact millions of lives.
Yes, definitely. I definitely like that. Exactly what you're saying, because one touches one, and moves on.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, I want to talk about one touches one, because I do believe, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you started this idea, you had some people on the left side saying, go for it. And you had some people on the right side saying, dude, what the hell are you doing? We're going to talk about that when we come back. Stay tuned. CMJ Entertainment is a one-stop shop. CMJ Entertainment helps people do any type of events, and it's a marketing tool as well. So we'll cover everything from start to finish. If it's a wedding, we'll make sure your wedding is over the top. And if it's an event, we make sure that everybody gets information at the end of the day. Give us a call at 416-414-8964 or online go to cmjent.com.
Hey, it's okay if you're driving or too busy to take notes. Charles has your parachute packed with all the info you need to jump into success. Check out the links section for all the tools you need to land safe. Now, let's keep falling with Charles and his special guest.
Yes, we are back live, and I'm here with one of the bravest persons I know. Because I'm telling you, if it was me, I don't know if I could do it. I'm being honest. My show is about honesty, because I'd be scared. I'd be like, yo, I got to do this and dive into this, and I don't know these people, and is it going to work? Is it not going to work? And before we went into break, I was like, you had the left side people saying, Donnie, go for it. Yeah, you can do it. And then the people on the right side said, yo, stick to your 9 to 5. What do you do? Who do you listen to? Who was the naysayers? Are you still friends with them? What's going on?
Man, that's such a great question, man. Yeah. So another philosophy that the wife and I have is this, and for everyone who hears this, please take this to heart and just wake up every day and remind yourself of this. You choose your life. I'm going to repeat it again. You choose your life. So at the end of the day, right? Like we don't know how long, we have here or anything else, but imagine laying in your bed at the end of at surrounded by your loved ones at the end of your life. You're going to come to the realization, and I came to this realization myself. Other people's opinion about like how you want to live your life and the decisions you want to make, if you allow them to influence the decisions that you make, then you at the end of your life have to then take full ownership of the fact that you could have chosen to do it another way. Right. And so for me, I've just made a decision that like, look, like, that's fine. If that's your opinion, no love lost. That's not how I want to live my life, period. And so I've been willing to make those decisions a little bit more. My grandfather, shout out to him, Ephraim Dunn, Eth the Chief, as he's known, is really like a father figure to me. Amazing guy. And we've had some conversations with some decisions that I've made kind of throughout life, right? A classic example, I chose to go to Kenya, and I was the chief operating officer for a technology startup based in Nairobi for about 4 months. And that was a conversation that, this is back in 2017. I remember talking to him and he's like, dude, why are you going to Kenya? What do you mean you're going to Kenya? Like, you got a job. Like, why would you step away from that? Why would you, put your job at risk to, go and do a sabbatical for 4 months? Mm-hmm. And I just said, look, Grandpa, this is what I want to do. Like, I believe that I can add value to this organization. Entrepreneurship is something that, I think is amazing. And I've always wanted to live and work on the continent, right? Like, how many times am I going to get the opportunity to actually live and work in Eastern Africa?
Right. Right.
And it, at the end of it, right, that 4 months flew by. But, it was just such an amazing opportunity, right? And that's the thing that you have to remind yourself, for people. Number one, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Right. And here's another practical tip, right? We're on the Jump podcast. So one of the things I like to do, Charles, is I like to work through, and I will literally walk through like the worst case scenario, the absolute worst case. So, me going to Kenya. So the first time, let's say it this way. The first time I went to the continent of Africa, I went to Ghana. Right. And a very close friend of mine had just passed away, who had lived there, unfortunately. And I was going to visit another buddy of mine. And so I went through the worst case scenario, right? Like I go to Ghana, we're in the bush north of Kumasi, and, I get, despite my malaria pills and stuff, I get malaria. I'm away from my parents. I'm away from my family, loved ones. I'm super sick. I miss my flight. I lose all my money. My buddy is like, kidnapped. So like, what do? I'm left in the bush with like no resources, shaking with malaria, in just very place in a place that's not comfortable. Right. And almost die. Right. And, as a result, I lose my job and like all these other things. Like, what would I do if all of that stuff happens? And I encourage all of you who are listening, go to the extreme, right? Like, go to the very extreme.
Trust me, you did that.
Right? Like I did, right? Like, how crazy was that scenario?
Yeah, you did that.
Right? And so despite that being the very worst case scenario, what would I have done? Well, I would have worked back my way somehow through the bush, made it to the U.S. Embassy, it told them I'm a U.S. citizen. Like, they would have found, I would have made it back to the States somehow. Maybe I would have had to move back home and live in my parents' basement. But I have skills, some other things. So yeah, maybe it puts me 6 months behind, but like, I could make that. And for me, going to that extreme to say, even if that's the worst case scenario, I could still make it. Then you can fast forward to reality, which is like somewhere in the middle, right? Because the best case scenario is like the other extreme.
Yeah, exactly. It's the worst case scenario you don't think about, you don't wonder about, right?
Yeah, because I think if you work out that extreme, like the worst case and the extreme situation, and you're okay with it, then it's easier for me to process that like reality is not going to be that bad. So somebody's opinion about like you staying in the job that you should because you should like that's their fears. That's not yours. So don't allow them to put their fears or frankly their limitations on you, right? Once again, no love lost for those people. Now, if they're like, actively looking to sabotage, the move that you're making,
right? Well,
that's a different scenario. But somebody giving their opinion about an idea that you have that you want to, you're willing to take the risk on. I don't hold that against anybody. I view that as well. That's based on their risk tolerance and frankly their their dream or vision for the life that they want to live. But that in no way impacts like, a decision that I want to make.
All right. So let's do it. We have this funny game. Let's play it. Here we go.
Let's do it.
Now time for pick 3.
All right. It's now time for pick 3. You're going to pick numbers between 1 and 10. 3 numbers. And those are the questions I'm going to ask you.
Perfect.
Give me 3 numbers between 1 and 10, sir.
Yep. I'm going to go 1, 5, and 10.
10. Number 1. What is the one thing you wish you would have known before getting into this business?
I wish that I would have known that I needed to push a little bit harder to become a technology company a little bit earlier.
Okay.
And by the way, I've only been in the role for like 7 months, but just to put that in perspective, like I'm just a little impatient, so I probably would have started some of the technology moves and stuff that we're making now, in arguably before I even started as president. So that's it.
Okay. Just a little bit longer. Just a little.
Yep, a little bit longer.
All right. So here's the next one. Number 5. Well, what have you read or listened to recently that has inspired you?
Ooh, man. So listened to recently, last night while I was on the plane, I listened to a talk by Tom Bilyeu. And it was entitled, "I Am Not Yet Good Enough." And it was so powerful because, and we're talking about the Jump on the Jump podcast, right? It was talking about growth mindset and being willing to ask yourself the question, or at least admit to yourself that you are not yet good enough,
Right.
yet good enough, but that you have the ability to become good enough and the person that you need to become in order to achieve your dream and goal. So that was so powerful for me and just a great reminder last night.
All right. And the last one is 3 top people, influencers in your life, people that made a difference, most, did something that you can remember. Give me the top 3.
Oh, man. Well, 1A and 1B are my wife, Ty, and my daughter, Sophia.
Okay.
Sophia's 2 years old. So they're number 1, for me. I will also say, shout out to my good friend, business partner, and mentor, Brendan Anderson, founder of ScaleCo. We went out and, raised money together and acquired this business. And so shout out to Brendan. And then, lastly, I'll just say, my parents, Donald and Elinda Bedney. Shout out to both of them just for, all the sacrifices they made, growing up and doing the best that they could to, raise me into the man that I am today.
All right, let's backtrack too. I don't usually do this, but I'm going to ask you this. You shouted out is she 2 years old?
Yeah. Yep.
First kid?
Yep. First and only. Yep.
All right. How when she popped out,
Mm-hmm.
how did your business change?
Man, so my view on life when she popped out was how can I accelerate creating the life and access to opportunities that I've said I wanted to do to make sure that she grows up in a completely different way than the way that I did.
Oh man, it's like I thought I was the only one.
Nope.
It's like,
It happened, man.
it's like
It happened.
you're an entrepreneur, you're coasting, everything is good. You have a child, and then it's like, oh, I gotta get done. I want to get this done. Okay, this has to be done. I gotta get this done. This has to be done.
Yep.
Why is that? Because you want to leave that legacy. Like, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oof. I have not thought through that completely, man. That is such an amazing question. Legacy is really, really important to me. I think that the big thing is I just want to find a way. I believe that Ty and I, my wife, we're, on both sides of our family, we're the people who basically are shifting a lot of shifting our families out of a lot of cyclical patterns.
Okay.
That ultimately are going to impact not only Sophia's life and our nieces and nephews and others, but literally the next 3 to 4 generations of our family.
Mm-hmm.
By being able to pass down not only assets, but frankly, just a different worldview, like some of the things we're talking about today. Because growth mindset, man, my nieces and nephews and my daughter are going to be able to go after whatever it is that they dream about, and do it in a way that they are not afraid to fail, because they've been able to see my life and understand that there's no way that you can't work your way back, and that the best case scenario is always going to be better than your worst case scenario.
Right. You want to leave nuggets. And that's the thing. Little nuggets here and there to help the next generation.
Major keys is what I'm leaving. Major keys.
You're like, you hand them a bunch of keys, and they're like, that is a lot of keys. Yeah, you better hang on to these things.
Man, I'm telling you, man. And we're going to talk about it, right? Like the stuff that we talk about is it's just practical, right? Like and major keys. Like I don't want to leave crumbs, for them to kind of follow. I want us to have those conversations in a very open, transparent way. And like the practical conversation we're having today, right? Like she's going to have the luxury, and she does have the luxury. We talk about those kind of things. She's been on WebEx calls with me, with clients, right?
Yeah.
So just the exposure to the possibilities is something huge that I want to leave for her. More. And frankly, just anybody, right? Like this, thank you so much for having me on your platform today, but being able to expose some folks to some ideas and possibilities that before this conversation today, they just had no idea. There's going to be some people who had no idea that you could actually buy an existing business, and their mind is blown right now.
Yeah, trust me. I'm thinking back. I'm like, oh man, I could have done it a different way. I could have just partnered up with somebody.
Yep.
I thought this is of me branding for how many years, getting me to this level, doing this and doing that, and just going and helping somebody or going into partnership with somebody. It's like there's nuggets. There's always nuggets. But here's the thing: you're never too old to jump. Okay, you jump.
Man, definitely not.
Your jump might not be as high like it used to. The vertical ain't that high, but you can still jump, man. So if you gotta go for it 110% and just let it go. Listen, my friend, this has been awesome. But before we let you go, checking out your website, podcast. You do a show as well. Tell everybody where they can catch you.
Oh man, so the pod is launching actually tomorrow on my birthday.
There you go.
Only Dream Big podcast. I shared some of those concepts today, right? Encouraging and just want to curate conversations with folks who have been able to achieve their dreams, and to be able to do it with and through other people. And so that's the gist of the pod. Very excited about it. Once again, kicking off tomorrow. We have a double episode actually. So we're kicking off with 2 episodes that are going to be so powerful. And I'm just excited to be able to share that with the world. And once again, continue to curate conversations to encourage folks to only dream big.
So I see here, who do you got? Anthony
Flynn.
Yep.
Founder and CEO of Amazing CEO. Okay. Absolutely powerful conversation. And then good buddy of mine, Stefan Theringer, who is the founder of the Human Innovation Garage. And I mean, when I talk about these guys are powerhouses, not only do they coach, top level executives, entrepreneurs, and high performing individuals, but they also just personally have been able to overcome, odds and, achieve some things just in their personal and professional lives. And what we do is we just break it down in a very practical and pragmatic way so people can take some of those tools and tips and apply them to their life literally as soon as they turn off the pod. So it's exciting.
There you go. Well, listen, thank you so much. And if you want to check it out, the link is in the description. Make sure you check him out. And happy birthday tomorrow, my friend.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Listen, like I always say, you didn't have to listen, but I'm glad you did. And if you did, take that chance. Jump into action. Success is waiting. We'll see you next time.
Has come to an end, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.
Please be advised that this podcast is meant for educational and informational purposes only and is in no way a replacement for legal or medical advice. The opinions contained within are solely those of the interviewers and interviewees and should be received as so. Those seeking help or advice are encouraged to obtain professional legal and medical service.
Hey, hope you had a great time listening to the show. If you think I did a great job, please buy me a coffee. I still got a lot of work to do. We would love to hear from you, your feedback, so please click the link and leave us a review. You can help us grow by following us on all social media platforms and sharing this link. Once again, it's time for you to jump. Success is waiting.